Welcome, and in this lesson we're going to talk about grep, fgrep, and egrep. So we've used grep, basic versions of grep, throughout this entire course. Now what I want to do is I want to show you some more of the options that are available to use with grep. Then I want to show you different types of grep, how we can use fgrep to speed up searches, or egrep to use it for extended regular expressions. So what we know about grep is that it matches patterns. The basic version of grep allows us to use certain regular expressions in order to match the patterns we're looking for. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. What I have are a few files that I've already created. Now if I do a cat test f, you'll see that I have some hello worlds inside of my test f file. If you want, you can go ahead and pause the screen and add this into your file so you can follow along at the same time. So just knowing and using what we've already known is I can do a grep and search for hello and then the file that I'm searching for or searching through. And it's going to return to us all of the returned options. Now if we were to cat test f and pipe it to grep and then search for hello, what that does is the exact same thing. It's going to return the same results. But you've noticed that we've used this command previously, and that's primarily to demonstrate text piping and creating and using grep with different commands. But we can actually use the grep command just by itself. Again, by grep, the regular expression, hello, and then either the location and or the file name. So we'll do test f. So it's going to return back everything that has hello in it for the specific line. Now the other thing I can do, well there's a lot of things we can do. So I can pass it the caret flag, the caret character. And what this is going to do is it's going to match all the lines that begin with hello. So if we pass it this, all we're going to get is a return for all the lines that match hello. Now let's say that we want to also get a count. All I have to do is pass it the -c flag, and that gives me a count of all the lines that have hello starting with it. Now, same thing we can do is if we remove the caret flag, and we can have all of the lines that actually end with hello. And so it says there's 5 lines. Let's see if that's true. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the -c flag, and we're going to see what lines end with hello. That's the $sign flag. And we see here the lines that all end with hello. So what we're doing here is we're using regular expressions. Now regular expressions can get extremely complex. What we're doing here is we're looking at basic regular expressions and how to start using them. And so regular expressions are involved of characters and combination of characters that allow us to really kind of filter through and search for what we're looking for. Now, we can do things extremely simple or more complicated. What we can do is we can also set up more character references or something called a character reference. And I do that by opening up brackets. And what I want to put in these brackets is a listing of characters that I'm looking for. So let's say we're looking for Z. Well, there's nothing inside of our text file that has Z in it, so it's not going to return anything. So let's say I'm looking for H. It's going to return all of the H characters. Unfortunately, it's highlighting it for us at this point so we can see what exactly we're looking for. We can also just put in multiple characters. If I'm looking for H, P, O, K, H, and J, it's going to also filter that for us. Return all of the lines that have our given pattern associated with it. Now, we can also pipe it the character to say starts with one of these, and it will return only lines that start with this. Now again, this is just the very basics. There's a lot you can do with regular expressions. We can search for only uppercase letters. We can search for case insensitive. If we pass it the -i, we know that it doesn't matter whether it's a capital or not. It's case insensitive at that point. But again, what I'm trying to do is show you how to begin using the grep as a very powerful tool. So as our character references, I can also pass it a dash in there, which means I want all of the characters between A and G. And so it will pipe through and grep for all of the characters between A and G. We can do the same thing for A and B, and you'll notice that it's going to return only our A's because, well, there are no B's. Now the same thing we can do is we can do this for numbers or letters. We can say 1 through 9. And it'll return everything that has 1 through 9 in it. Of course, our file doesn't have anything associated with 1 through 9 in it, so there's nothing there for us. I have a long search pattern that I'm looking for. It's something that we have to use frequently, but we don't want to continually type out. What I can do is I can actually store that search pattern in a file. Now, if I grep a file that we have already created here, it's just cron. And this can be a long character pattern. Again, this is the pattern we're searching for. And this can be something long, something that we have to frequently use, which is why we might want to store it in a file. Well, one thing I can actually do is I can take what is in that file and have grep look at that as its pattern input. So what I can do is grep, and then grep input, or the -f flag, which is going to say take this file, read what's in this file, the contents of this file for our pattern, and then the file we're going to search for, or the location. And we're going to go through testf. Well, testf doesn't have anything that matches our pattern. Our pattern in here was cron. Now, if I were to vi grep input, and I were to also add or change our pattern to hello, and then we were to re-echo our command or re-perform our command, it's going to return results for hello for us. So we can demonstrate here how we're using a file for input. And again, this is a scenario where if you have a long, complex pattern that you need to use frequently, generally you'll want to save that somewhere. You won't want to have to copy and paste, and you won't want to have to retype it every single time, because regular expressions can get advanced in certain situations. And so that's when you might find this specific file useful. So let's go through some more cool grep commands as we're searching. So one thing I've used this for, and it may not be the best tool. You can also use find and awk and sed for these types of situations. But what I can do is I want to look for files that maybe contain a specific reference. So again, maybe hello or cron associated with it. So what I can do is grep. I'm going to use the -l flag, the -r flag for recursive, and I can put these together. And the pattern I'm looking for is I'm just going to type in cron, and then the directory I want to look for and all the subdirectories associated with that. And so then we'll hit return. And so what this has done is this has identified all, but because we passed it the -l flag, it's giving us file names that include some of this information, that include the pattern cron. So let's say we're looking for a piece of code or a name and we lost where we put it. We can use this tool to search all of the files, grep our files, and it will return what file names have this pattern matching somewhere within the file or the file name in itself. And so that's a cool little flag. And so we learned there the -l flag and the R flag for recursive, because not only can we pass it a file, but we can pass it a directory to search and recursively search everything inside of that directory and the subdirectories, so on and so forth. And so this is a very neat tool. And grep is really something I've seen going back and forth between our courses, something that we've used a lot. And we've used it very basic, and you can get complex on your regular expressions that you're looking for, especially if you're going to start using regular expressions. You can grep, for example, something you can do is grab a website. And from there, grep all the URLs associated with the website that are not associated with an image. You can grep everything that begins with an image. So if we wanted to, we can say grep, and we wanted to match the regular expression. Okay, so what we know is an image, we have src equals. So we have an equals and then quotes. And then so from there, what we could do is when we poll using curl or something else, we would say starts with equals and then our double quotes. And then what that will do is it will search for everything. And then we can actually go in even further and parse out whether it's a URL or if it has HTTP in it or FTP or HTTPS. And so this is a very useful tool when you are trying to parse a website, for example. So that's a great overview of grep, getting started with grep. Again, there's a lot to it. We know that it handles regular expressions, and we're using this to master the Linux command line. Now let's talk about egrep. Egrep is going to allow us to use extended regular expressions. It's going to allow us to use characters such as our pipe, our question mark, plus, and it's also going to allow us to use a dot asterisk, which is going to simulate an and. So the plus sign matches all items that exist. We can also use brackets, which we can specify the number of times or n number of times that the preceding item is matched. So if it's matched exactly 3 times, for example. And so let's go ahead and just dive in and do some of these examples. So egrep allows us to use these types of characters. And so how are these characters useful? Well, I'm going to show you probably the most common use cases with these characters, and that's simulating not, or, and. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So we have our testf. I've made some changes to it, our little testf file, and we've added hello world, all these different items that contain these patterns. And so let's simulate how we can use egrep to get some of these patterns for us. So if I'm going to do, let's just go ahead and say what I want to do is I want to grab all of the lines that contain hello and world with it. So I'm going to do egrep, and I want to pass it hello dot asterisk and then world. And so it's going to be everything that has hello and world in it. And you'll notice we can have hello world Jeff, hello world. And so if we come back over here to our line, we have hello world Jeff, hello world. Now you might say, okay, well there's other lines. Well, what we don't have is we don't have the -i flag to say ignore case. If we were to ignore case, at this point we would get more results, clearly with our capital letters in there because it's case sensitive. So let's say now what I want to do is I want to only show lines that have hello or world inside of it. Well, I'm going to replace my dot asterisk with a pipe, Linux pipe here. And we'll hit return, and you'll see that we have hello, we have hello Jeff, we have hello world, because we're either looking for a line that contains hello or a line that contains world. If it contains both, we'll return both. That's not a problem for us. And so what it's doing is it's matching this pattern, and then it's looking for this pattern. So what we can do is we can have nested patterns, essentially. Even though they're not based off or conditioned based off the previous or preceding pattern, what we can do is we can have multiple different patterns that we're looking for while using grep. So our pattern hello, we're looking for it. And that's completely separate than our pattern world. They're not dependent upon each other. We're just looking for hello or for world. Now what I can do here is I can actually pass it the -v flag, which says return everything that does not contain hello or world in it. Now we don't have the -i flag here, so it's going to return our capital letters because we're back to being case sensitive. Now if we were to pass it our I flag, it's only going to return hi Jeff. Hi Jeff is the only line inside of our file that does not contain hello or the pattern world on one of the lines. And so that's a very useful tool. So what we've learned so far is how to do one pattern or another. And we've also learned how to do one pattern and a different pattern. So let's give another example here. Let's just go ahead and type egrep, hello, world. So we're looking for hello or world for our testf file. And then what I want to do is let's just look at the results from this. Now what I want to say is, all right, well I have all the results for all the lines that contain lowercase hello or lowercase world. But what I don't want is any lines that contain Jeff on it. Even if it has the pattern hello or pattern world, if it has Jeff, don't return it. We don't like Jeff for some reason. We just don't want him in there. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to then pipe my standard output to another egrep command, and I'm going to pass it the -v. Now, we actually don't have to use egrep. Egrep is for extended regular expressions, and we're not going to have an extended regular expression here, so I can do grep-v and then the pattern Jeff. And you'll notice that we do not have any Jeffs in here. We have all lines that contain the pattern hello or the pattern world, but do not contain the pattern Jeff. And we use that by piping our output into this grep command and then filtering it down further for us. And so you can see how extended regular expressions can be extremely useful in specific scenarios. Now let's finish up by taking a look at fgrep. Much like egrep, we use fgrep as a separate command. Now we don't have to use it as a separate command. With egrep we had grep-e, which which meant the same thing as egrep. And then here grep -F means the same thing as fgrep. So what fgrep does, it allows us to interpret our pattern literally, meaning it doesn't attempt to do any type of regular expression matching. Any characters we pass to it don't have hidden meanings, such as the $, which says match everything on regular grep, match everything that this pattern ends the line with. So let's just take a look at our file and we'll see what we're talking about. So if I cat test f, you'll notice I've thrown in a hello $. Now using regular grep, if I were to do hello $, what we would expect to return, because the $, says everything that matches on the end of the line for our test f file, it's going to return all the pattern hello that ends the line with hello. But if we were to use fgrep or grep-F, what it's going to do is it's going to interpret it literally. It's not going to attempt to do any regular expression matching. It's not going to have different meanings behind our characters. It's going to look for the pattern that has hello $, only, not for the pattern that precedes the $, which would cause it to end the pattern on the ending of the line. It's going to interpret it literally. And so when might we want to use this? Well, this would be useful if we're needing to look for just a specific text or specific words, or we're needing to go through large amounts of files. Think about if it's not having to interpret regular expressions, you're using less CPU usage. Your grep search, fgrep search, is going that much faster. So we'd like to use it when speed is of concern and resources are of concern, and we have a large data set that we're filtering through. And if we don't need regular expressions or the use for regular grep. And it's used just to interpret it literally. So it takes out the regular expressions inside of grep. So we've learned a little bit about grep, egrep, and fgrep. These are very advanced commands. And when you throw in regular expressions, the sky is really the limit. You can get regular expressions that are extremely long. You can get regular expressions that look for spaces inside of a file, that look for line breaks, that look for anything that a character can create essentially inside of a file. So there's a lot you can do with regular expressions, and we can't cover it all in just any lesson. So if you have questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask. Else, the main takeaway from this is when you should use grep, egrep, or fgrep, and the fact that egrep is really grep with a capital -E flag, and fgrep is really grep with a capital -F flag. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Else, go ahead and complete your lesson.